Welcome back to r/NeighborsFromHell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors, and if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, "Neighbor tried to mow me down with his tractor for blocking his driveway." Having a dispute over land with one of your neighbors can be one of the most pain-in-the-butt things you can deal with. The old guy who I shared an easement with went and lost his damn mind one day, I tell you. His name was Roy, and he almost killed me with a tractor after we started arguing over the stupid easement again. When I think back on things now, hindsight tells me maybe I should have handled it differently. Another part of me says that it doesn't matter and that the man is crazy anyways. This is my story about how my damn neighbor decided to chase me down in his tractor in a fit of rage. It started one day during the summer when my family had a large graduation party for my daughter Casey. We had known Roy for years and never had an issue with him, except once when he decided to get drunk and park his lawnmower in our ditch for days. Anyway, we live somewhat out in the country. We both have a lot of heavy machinery and equipment. I own a construction company and he used to own an old well-digging business before he retired. We share an easement at the end of the property near the road. We live in the front and his house is further down the driveway in the back. The two properties are separate, but like I said, we share the easement that is my driveway and goes back to his. This is what caused the majority of the issues. We had a lot of family and friends at Casey's graduation party. There were dozens of cars and they were parked up and down the driveway and in our yard. Pretty much anywhere they could park. So unfortunately, that meant that Roy's entrance and exit to and from his property was a little restricted that day. Which I genuinely felt bad about, but I didn't have a lot of choice and it was only for a few hours. Roy marched down to my house and approached me in my garage where we had several tables and food set up for our guests. I was socializing and spending time with them when I realized I had a dirty, scruffy and very annoyed looking Roy wanting to speak with me. I, of course, immediately knew what he was red in the face about. "Roy, I'm sorry, I know that we're in the way. I can have people move if you need them to." I also offered him a beer, which he angrily declined.
"Yeah, they need to move out of the drive."
He kept looking around at all the guests and cars, glaring and grumbling to himself. I realized that I don't see his big white Super Duty parked anywhere. "Do you need to leave? I don't see your truck." I didn't want to play musical cars if I didn't have to. Is he really just coming down here to give me crap during a party that will only happen once when he doesn't even need to go anywhere?
"Don't worry about where I'm going. I need you people to move out of the driveway now."
And with that, he turned on his heel and started walking back to his house. I did as he asked and had people move and barely making room for his big old truck to squeeze through about 30 minutes later. It seemed to be from here on out, Roy had an issue with us. Like I said, we had lived next to him for around 8 years and not really had any problems. For some reason though, this just set him off. About a week later, Roy approached my wife while she was in the front yard working in the flower beds. He was a little friendlier with her than he was with me the last time we talked, thankfully, but he still seemed angry. Roy told her that the day before our trash cans had blocked the driveway/easement, so he almost had to run them over to get through. She apologized and said that the wind must have blown them over into the driveway. As he was leaving, he turned and told her,
"Y'all cannot keep blocking the driveway. It's mine too."
She didn't want to get into it with him, so she just let it go until I got home. That same weekend, I had some work going on at my house in the kitchen and there were several people. So a few cars ended up on the easement again. I made sure they parked far enough over so that Roy could get out if he wanted to. This effort was in vain. Roy drove down in his tractor with the front loader on it and parked it in the easement dangerously close to the work trucks and started yelling at me. He could see me in my garage again, moving things from the kitchen to keep them clean and out of the way. I could hear Roy shouting at me from his tractor. He apparently wasn't going to get out of it. I walked out to him and he was obviously being nasty right away.
This is BS, Tim. Now you've got trucks in the driveway. I told your damn wife to tell you to keep things out of the driveway.
Roy, I'm gonna stop you right there. His nostrils flared and his face reddened, but I was not in the mood for his crap that day. I could see a meltdown was coming. This is not just a driveway, but it's an easement too. And I own it. So I'm going to let these workers park there because I don't have anywhere else for them to park. Plus I made sure they were far enough over so you could get around if you...
I don't care if it is your easement. You cannot stop me from getting in and out.
He fumed and leaned forward so that he was over me. His attempt at intimidation was futile, as I'm not afraid of this man.
If I wanted to, I could take my tractor and move them out of the way.
He shifted the gear of his tractor, showing me that he must mean business or something. You better don't do anything, Roy. You need to leave now. He moved his tractor up, inching nearer to the work truck that was on the side of the easement. I stepped in front of his tractor, assuming that he won't do anything if I'm in the way. Well, I was wrong. He smiled and hit the gas. When I turned to get out of the way, he continued to follow me with the large piece of equipment. What are you doing? I shouted as he laughed and told me to
run,
which I unfortunately had to do in order to avoid being ran over by him. He literally chased me several yards on his tractor before I was able to get somewhere out of his reach. The workers that were at my house all witnessed the event. My wife was terrified. She actually thought that Roy might hurt me, which I started to believe after a minute of being chased down by him. She called the police, and when they arrived, we had several unbiased witnesses to account for the event. The tire marks were also evident in my heart, where I had to run to avoid him, and he followed me. I was apprehensive to say that he needed to be arrested, but my wife made that happen. She said that he crossed the line and needed to know that you cannot just chase people with tractors over a silly dispute with an easement. It is our easement after all. Roy argued that I had blocked his way in and out of his property, but the police could clearly see that there was more than enough space for him to leave in his truck if he wanted to. They took Roy to jail, where he was set on a bond. He had someone pay that so that he could get out of jail, and at the end of the court session a few weeks later was sentenced to several fines and even some community service. I don't think that the judge felt like Roy was a huge danger, which I also agree with. I think that paying some money and dealing with community service is appropriate enough for the whole thing. After all, I still don't think that he would actually have run me over. Roy did somewhat begrudgingly apologize to me a few months later. It took him a while, but now he keeps all of his complaints to himself. And I gotta say, ripe stars, if my neighbor would chase me with his tractor and generally just seem a little bit insane, I'm not sure if I could still sleep in peace. Would you have just forgiven the neighbor like OP? What would you have done if you were in the author's shoes? Please let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, I would really appreciate it if you could also like the video if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much in advance. Your support is very much appreciated. Thank you so much. The next one is titled F with my family, F your hangers, dude. This story is about my mother's second husband. She married him when I was about 12. They were married for about 15 years. Bob was/is one of those people who are heavily into his religion and expects that he should be the head of the house. Bob was borderline financially, spending money they didn't even have, and emotionally abusive to her, and even got physical with my younger brother a few times before my mother and I stopped him. Some of Bob's greatest hits were the following. Number 1, telling me he was going to take my car that I paid for and wasn't in his name when his AC blew, even though I was driving it to and from school and work and I hid the keys. Second, Bob worked at a chain fast food place and would expect me to work washing dishes off the books to help keep his labor numbers down. One of those live-to-work types. They fired him eventually because he is really bad at managing people. Number 3, he had 2 young children from a previous marriage. He wouldn't tell anyone when they were coming and just drop it on us 1 to 2 days before, and he would just expect my mom or I would care for the children. More than once I told him I was working and that he needed someone there for them when I got home from school because I needed to be at work. He just would not show up though, leaving me with the choice to call in to my job, which paid my expenses as well as contributed to the household expenses because he was so bad with money, or leave 2 children under 5 home alone. Then he would be pissed when he got home because I was a teen and needed to do what he said, even if that meant losing a day's pay. Number 4, he was obsessed with hangers. He had this weird thing about how he only wanted a certain type of hanger for his clothes. If anyone else used this type of hanger, he would get pissed and be in a mood for days over hangers. Of course, as soon as they were married, he didn't do laundry again, but everyone was expected to save his hangers for his laundry. So, after I married off and my brother graduated high school, my mom decided to leave him. My brother was working for Bob's family manufacturing business at the time. Bob had refused to work there until after being fired from the fast food chain and only was a supervisor for lower level employees like the cleaning crew. When my mother decided to leave, she asked my brother to help her move. He agreed and cleared the time off. She decided it was in her best interest to not tell Bob she was leaving until it was done. He wasn't blindsided, he knew she was going to do it, but she didn't want him to help with it because he was a massive control freak. My brother secured the time off and all was well. Somehow Bob found out why he wanted the time off. The night before she is set to move out, he tells my brother that he didn't approve the time off and if he wasn't at work the next morning, he was fired. Then he told her that if she wanted to move out so badly, she could do it alone. My brother had bills of his own and had to choose. So my mom called me that night in tears and I told her to tell my brother to go to work. My husband and I were able to find professional movers and hire them for the same day at like 6 AM. We got so lucky, plus she had been buying furniture and things for a bit, so half of her stuff was at my place anyway, so the movers picked up her stuff and then we went over to Bob's place to get her and the rest of her stuff. The only thing my mom really was taking besides personal items were her clothes. She even left the furniture she came into the marriage with. However, she hadn't packed her closet clothes because she was working in a professional setting and needed them. I told her to go deal with the movers and I would finish up packing her clothes. Here is the petty revenge. I swapped every single one of Bob's hangers. I even went into the coat closet and took the ones there and the laundry room where the unused ones were kept. I left all of my mom's regular plastic hangers so he wasn't left with nothing. I even hung up his clothes all on the bed hangers. Because my mom literally left with her personal items and the clothes on her back, he didn't have a leg to stand on. Any person he tried to complain to about the hangers shut him down immediately, which pissed him off to no end because he hates being told that he is wrong or not having his butt kissed. And this, ripe stars, is what you call nuclear hanger revenge. The next one is titled, Let's Just Make a New Town. Southern folks can be petty, and this is a story dating back to the 1940s. In the early days of WW2, the Army Air Corps decided to build a new Air Force base and they decided to call it Robins AFB. Around that base grew a community and the town of Warner Robins, Georgia was created in 1942. Well, being Southern meant you were a Christian back then, and it meant your church was very important to you. Now, the history is murky on the subject, but the tale goes that the First Baptist Church of Warner Robins was operating its services in Warner Robins, Georgia. After the war, many service members had returned from their time fighting overseas and Robins AFB had steadily been growing. Well, a group of individuals decided to create their own church, also called First Baptist Church of Warner Robins. Now, you see, that's a problem because you cannot have two churches with the same name in the same town, because to be frank, that's a bit confusing. And also, there were differences in the beliefs between the two churches, and apparently the congregations didn't see eye to eye. What were those differences between the two Baptist churches? To be honest, I got no idea on this God's green earth what kind of differences can exist between two groups of people who not only follow the same religion, but essentially the same version of their respective religion, but nonetheless they fought over it. Apparently this went to court, or at least someone with some authority. Some say a zoning commission made the ruling. It happened so long ago most people had forgotten, and the decision was made. The new First Baptist Church of Warner Robins could not be named First Baptist Church of Warner Robins. It was suggested that they simply call themselves the Second Baptist Church of Warner Robins. However, they felt that God valued their opinion more than the other Baptist church, and that they couldn't stand by and be called the Second Baptist Church. Now Southern, they can be petty. However, they were not allowed to call themselves First Baptist Church. So what did they do? They created a brand new frickin' town in the middle of a town. They got the local residents together and went through the political process to annex themselves from Warner Robins. They created their own police force, their own schools, their own firefighters, etc. And they named themselves Centerville. I find that name ironic. I don't think the irony was lost back then, so that is how in 1958 Centerville, GA became a thing. So what happened after the new town was created? Well, obviously, First Baptist Church of Centerville was created. Now, if that ain't petty, then I don't know what is petty. As I understand, hardly anyone originally connected with either church, and everyone that was involved in this dispute is long since gone. The tale was told to me by an older member of one of the churches who remember the back and forth and the drama and how Centerville became a town. And I gotta admit, Ripe Stars, that is probably one of the most unique petty revenge stories I have ever heard about. And by the way, Ripe Stars, I'm pretty sure that some of you also live in smaller cities, usually in the United States, in the UK, or in Australia, or even Germany, because that is where most of my subscribers are from. And I would really love to know if you also live in such a unique little city that has an interesting backstory. Feel free to share that backstory with us in the comments. I always love to hear those. The next one is a story from r/petty revenge, and it is titled "Steal My Dinner? I'm going to minorly inconvenience you." Friday night, my wife ordered a takeaway for delivery for us. An hour and a half later, it had not arrived, and she called the shop and they were surprised and said they delivered it a while ago. Turns out they delivered it to the wrong house. Long story short, our road turns into a different road partway down. It is rare, but stuff can go wrong, and it doesn't usually happen because you have to go past our house to get there. Rather than say we didn't order anything and check the address, they took in the food and ate it. The delivery driver went around and asked them before delivering the new order to us again. When asked why it took it if he didn't order it, he said, "I don't know." The delivery place were great. Granted, they made a small mistake, but the guy at the other house shouldn't have taken it in. This meant we didn't get our food till 2 hours after ordering, and they were very apologetic. I, however, was very angry and wanted to confront the guy, but decided against it. I contemplated my revenge, everything from emptying our dog poo bin in front of their door to putting a brick through their window. And I quickly realized this was overkill. I went out with some friends and told them the story, and one of them suggested something great. Post a Jiffy bag with a note in it to them without postage. This will mean they'll get a notification from the post office saying there is a letter. They will have to go down to pay the postage and pick the letter up. In it will be a note asking them if they enjoyed my kebab. I feel this is sufficiently petty and will give me a nice feeling of satisfaction. And Ripe Stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.